Peace, this your host, Selah Shalom. And this is a Cosmon Teachings in the Words of Jehovah and his angel ambassadors from the Cosmon Bible, Oahspe. And the topic of discussion today is Decoding Islam with Oahspe. And this is part 11. Now, for most Muslims or Islamic believers, they believe that Muhammad is the last prophet and that the Quran is the last so-called holy book. With this being said, most Muslims believe they have the truth on their side because of this belief. Other Muslims believe that the covenant was taken from the Hebrew Israelites and given to the Ishmaelites, and now they're the chosen because of the Hebrew Israelites' disobedience. And this is another belief system that they have. Now I'm just going to read from Wikipedia the first revelation of Muhammad when he came across Gabriel. Now, according to Islamic tradition, during one such occasion, while he was in contemplation, the archangel Gabriel appeared before him in the year 610 and said, "Recite," upon which he replied, "I am unable to recite." Thereupon the angel caught hold of him and embraced him heavily. This happened 2 more times, after which the angel commanded Muhammad to recite the following verses. And this is what Muhammad was told to recite. "Proclaim or read in the name of thy Lord and Cherisher, who created man out of a mere clot of congealed blood. Proclaim, and thy Lord is most bountiful. He who taught the use of the pen, taught man that which he knew not." That's from the Quran, Surah 96. So that was supposed to be his first revelation with the angel, Gabriel. Now, he had another revelation where it states, he says, "The initial revelation was followed by a pause and a second encounter with Gabriel, when Muhammad hears a voice from the sky and sees the same angel sitting between the sky and the earth." And the revelation resumed with the first verses of chapter 74 in the Quran. Now here's the second encounter with Gabriel to Muhammad. He says, "When I was midway on the mountain, I heard a voice from heaven saying, 'O Muhammad, you are the apostle of Allah, and I am Gabriel.' And I raised my head toward heaven to see who was speaking, and Gabriel in the form of a man with feet astride the horizon, saying, 'O Muhammad, you are the apostle of Allah, and I am Gabriel.' I stood gazing at him, moving neither forward nor backward. Then I began to turn my face away from him. But towards whatever region of the sky I looked, I saw him as before." So here is another encounter of Gabriel to Muhammad. Here Gabriel is convincing Muhammad that he is an apostle of Allah. Muhammad never considered himself an apostle. It was Gabriel convincing Muhammad to be an apostle of Allah. So here is the cause of the beginning of Mohammadism. Now let's decode Muhammad with the Oahspe. Here is the missing link why Gabriel really came to Muhammad. Now here's what the Muslims do not know. First, Gabriel was an angel servant to another angel by the name of Luamong, the false Christ, as I showed in the previous vids, who established Christianity. Now, the same Gabriel responsible for establishing Islam is the same angel that helped Luamong, the false Christ, establish Christianity. Now, to show how Gabriel is a servant to Luamong, the false Christ, according to Oahspe, in God's book of Esdras, chapter 47, verse 5 and 6, it states, verse 5, "And Luamong, the false Christ, commanded Thoth, alias Gabriel, his angel warrior in command of his earthly dominion, to rise up tribes of warriors amongst mortals," verse 6. "And by the inspiration of said Thoth, Gabriel, these warriors were induced to call themselves Christians." So here, Oahspe shows how Gabriel was a warrior angel for Luamong, the false Christ. And it was Gabriel and his warrior host of angels that inspired mortals to call themselves Christians. So Gabriel was doing the dirty work for Luamong, the false Christ. And to show how Gabriel did a lot of service for Luamong, the false Christ, it states in the God's book of Esdras, chapter 48, verse 21 through 25, it states, verse 21, And it came to pass not many years that Luamong, the false Christ, through Gabriel, captured Baal, and this is the same Canaanite Baal, and all the false gods in all the regions far and near. And Gabriel took, along with the captured gods, 7,600,000 warring angels, and carried them all together to Makavishtu in Haiti, and cast them into hell, where there were already more than 10 millions who were in chaos and madness. Verse 22. And Gabriel had the place walled around with fire and noxious gases, so that none could escape. Verse 23. Such was the end of the earthly dominion of Baal, who had ruled over mortals for evil for upward of 3,000 years. And in fact, it was the final termination of the earthly gods that ruled over mortals through oracles and pagan practice. Verse 24. The earth was now clear of evil gods, whose chief labor had been for thousands of years to capture the spirits of the recent dead and make slaves of them for the glory of the Hadean kingdoms. Verse 25. Thus had Luamong, the false Christ, done a good service for the earth and lower heavens. For the earth and the lower heavens had nothing to suffer from any gods except the true ones, or the trinities, which is Luamong, Kabbalites, and Enuxa. But I explained that in the Trinity series, so go back and check that. So here you can see the depths of the labor of Gabriel and his warrior host of angels in service to Luamong, the false Christ, as a servant angel. Gabriel was also responsible for inspiring Constantine and the Council of Nicaea for Luamong, the false Christ. I already showed in the last vid and explained how Constantine's vision of the cross was inspired by Luamong, the false Christ. And it was Gabriel's warrior angel host that inspired Constantine's army to show victory during the war with Maximus at Malivian Bridge. And the host of Maximus was under the inspiration of the false god Baal and his warrior angels. And this battle, which Maximus lost, signified the end of the reign of Baal. As the verse stated in 23, such was the end of the earthly dominion of Baal, who had ruled over mortals for upward of 3,000 years. And this is the same Baal of ancient Canaan, which had reigned for over 3,000 years stemming from that time. And to show how angels inspire mortals, even in time of war, in God's book of Esdras chapter 20 verse 11, it states, and the armies of mortals were moved forth by the armies of angels, whom they saw not. War raged east and west and north and south. So here is a reference verse just to show you how angels can inspire mortals during the time of warfare. Now the same angel, Gabriel, was responsible for inspiring the New Testament, as stated in God's book of Esdras chapter 48 verse 30 and 31. Verse 30, Constantine, being under the inspiration of Luamong, the false Christ, through Gabriel, alias thought, thus spoke. Verse 31, search ye these books, and whatsoever is good in them, that retain. But whatsoever is evil, that cast away. What is good in one book, unite ye with that which is good in another book. And whatsoever is thus brought together shall be called the book of books. And this shall be the doctrine of my people, which I will recommend unto all nations, that there shall be no more war for religious sake. Now, this book is the New Testament, and later on the Bible. And the inspiring angel behind it was Gabriel through Luamong, the false Christ. Now here is how Gabriel through Luamong inspired the Council of Nicaea. In God's book of Esdras chapter 48 verse 32 through 35, it states, thought, alias Gabriel, and his angel host formed a circle around about the mortal council, 1,000 angels deep on every side, and extended upward densely for a long way, and thence by a line of light extending to Luamong's the false Christ throne, and Hepsendai, his heavenly kingdom. Verse 33, by day and by night, Gabriel thought, and his host watched over the mortal council, overshadowing their every thought and word. Verse 34, for 4 years and 7 months the council thus deliberated and selected from the 2,231 books and legendary tales. Verse 35, and at the end of the time there had been selected and combined much that was good and great, and worded so as to be well remembered by mortals. So here it shows you how Gabriel and his angel hosts control the inspiration of these mortals in the Council of Nicaea, as they selected books to form the New Testament. Now, I'm showing you this to show how Gabriel was a servant angel to Luamong the false Christ, and to show why Gabriel decided to raise up Muhammad. Now, after Gabriel got rid of Baal for Luamong the false Christ, and established Christianity and inspired Constantine and the Council of Nicaea for Luamong the false Christ, Luamong the false Christ promised Gabriel that he would give him his own heavenly kingdom and a host of angel slaves for doing his abiding, doing his service, which Gabriel kept and did his part, as stated in God's book of Esther chapter 49 verse 6 through 9. Now, verse 6, now, for upward of 1,000 years, the angel warrior Gabriel, alias Thought, had been to Luamong his most faithful sub-god. Verse 7, and Luamong had promised Gabriel that when he overthrew Baal and cast him into hell, he would give to Gabriel a great heavenly kingdom with the earthly base. Verse 8, accordingly Gabriel applied for Jerusalem, his station, and for the heavens thereunto, and for 1,000 million slaves. Verse 9, but Luamong postponed the matter from time to time for more than 600 years. And to give you a timeline of all this, this is from like the 1st century leading up to the 6th century. That's that 600 years he just mentioned that he's been doing the work for Luamong, the false Christ. So this verse confirms what I just stated. Luamong the false Christ promised Gabriel a heavenly kingdom and a host of angel slaves, but he kept postponing the matter. This is the equivalent of doing a job for somebody who said they will pay you $1,000 for the job, and you do the job, and when it's time to get paid, the person states, I'll pay you tomorrow. Then tomorrow come, and they'll say, yo, I'll pay you next week. And then next week come, he don't answer his phone. At this point, you're going to start thinking out the box to get your money. And this is the same situation that Gabriel is dealing with Luamong the false Christ. Now here is the message Gabriel sends to Luamong concerning his promise. Verse 10, Thought alias Gabriel then sent this message to Luamong, to wit, verse 11, by virtue of my own worth before the gods of heaven, I greet thee in peace and love. First in remembrance of thy many promises to me, in which thou hast kept not part thereof faithfully. Verse 12. Second, that thou art not Christ, which is all knowledge, but a usurper and a pretender. Verse 13. Third, that I made thee what thou art, and by my own hand help thee to cast out Baal and Ashtaroth and all the Romanian and Argosian or Greek gods, of which matters it is known in these 3 great heavens. Thou did promise me for more than 700 years to give me a kingdom of 1,000 million subjects. Verse 14. And fourth, since thou art safely raised up above all gods within these regions, thou hast affected to not know me. Yeah, and in thy great heavenly recreation and tournaments and receptions, thou hast not commanded my presence, or in any way show more remembrance of me than as if I were a newborn spirit. And he's saying, verse 15, and fifth, thou didst long promise me that if thou should succeed in establishing a sub-kingdom on the earth, or in Haiti, near the earth, thou would hand the same over to me, to rank thee in all things. But thou hast greedily kept both kingdoms to thyself, making either place thy residence, according to the times and seasons, propitious to thy own glory and ease. Verse 16. And lastly, that thou sacrifices the liberty of thy subjects, making them thy laborers to embellish thy kingdom, and making them little better than slaves, and forever parting in the ceremonies, giving in thy applause. Verse 17. These things have I often desired to speak to thee about, thou hast affected to be overran with other matters, so as to put me off from my opportunity, whereupon I have prayed to the Holy Ghost, or Holy Spirit, for hundreds of years, to have my suit just and honorable and holy. Verse 18. But I shall search no further. Hundreds of millions of thy highest grades, who went down to the earth with me to fight thy battles, and who know the justness of my cause, will, at a word from me, withdraw from thy kingdom and join me in an enterprise of my own. Verse 19. I shall await patiently for thy reply. So this is the message Gabriel sent to Luamong the false Christ. And you can see how Gabriel did all his dirty work. Now after Gabriel didn't get a response, this was his next move. And this is the root of why Islam began. Verse 20. But Gabriel received no reply to his message. And so, in course of time, he called together 10,000 angel warriors, and they assembled in a place called Kala Hored, the place of 7 steps in Haiti. Gabriel spake before them, saying, verse 21, Here will I establish my kingdom of heaven, and forever. I will show this false Christ what I can do. Mark ye, the great power of a God is to establish a good foothold on the earth. The natural increase will soon populate a heavenly kingdom. See that? So here you can see Gabriel decides to set himself up as a god with the heavenly kingdom and a host of warrior angels, and he proclaimed he will expose the false Christ, being Luamong, in return being Christianity. Now you're going to understand why Christians and Muslims cannot get along based off this angelical situation that you see playing out today. Now, listen to what Gabriel says when he states, the great power of a God is to establish a good foothold on the earth. The natural increase will soon populate a heavenly kingdom. Now some will not understand that. Here's what that means. What Gabriel is saying here is that once he has a stronghold on earth concerning his doctrine, where mortals accept the faith of Islam, that mortals who die accepting this doctrine will become subservient slaves to Gabriel in his heavenly kingdom after death. See that? So that's what Gabriel is saying when the natural increase will soon populate a heavenly kingdom. See, these angels are very cunning and deceiving, already knowing where your spirit will be placed after your death, while you accepting this doctrine has no knowledge of the afterlife, because they kept that knowledge and level of information out of the doctrine to make it easy to capture mortal spirits after death who accept these doctrines, and in this case being Islam, and in the previous vid being Christianity. Now here's where Muhammad comes into the picture. This is verses 22 through 24. Verse 22, this is Gabriel speaking. I will raise me up a prophet and a seer of my own on earth, and establish a new doctrine amongst mortals. Behold, I have a sword that will cut to pieces Luamong's the false Christ kingdom on earth. For listen, in the old Egyptian libraries are books and tablets of manuscripts that will show the perversity of the Constantine Bible. Now, remember Gabriel was the inspiring angel for establishing the New Testament for Luamong the false Christ. So Gabriel knows the root of where these stories come from. That's why he referred to the Egyptian libraries, which he is referring to is the Alexandrian Library of Egypt, before it was destroyed. So before the destruction of the Alexandrian libraries, these records were on file, showing you where the New Testament got their records from, before the library was destroyed. Now verse 23, now when I have established my prophet, I will cause mortal legions of Arabia to possess these libraries, especially Alexandria, and I will raise up mortal scholars who shall establish the truth of my prophet's doctrine and the falsity of this false Christ doctrine. And I will thus overturn his earthly kingdom and possess all these mortal regions myself to be mine forever. Verse 24. After that manner the angel Gabriel boasted, and he made the 10,000 his holy council, and from amongst them he appointed marshals, captains, generals, heralds, and officers in general. And they built a throne in heaven unto Gabriel, and called it the throne of Kala Hored. And he went and sat thereon, and then crowned himself Gabriel, God, which is Allah of heaven and earth. So here Gabriel now declares himself as a god. So now we got the name of his kingdom being called Kala, and then he takes the title of God being Allah. So the God Allah of Islam is Gabriel, and this verse confirms this. Now, as I stated earlier about the capturing of the spirits of the dead who die with the exception of this belief system of Islam, verse 29 confirms what I stated. Verse 29. Now, the time came when Gabriel's kingdom was sufficiently established, and he began to provide for his great scheme to establish himself with mortals, that their spirits after death might be brought to his kingdom. For such is the order of Jehovah's creation, that whosoever man worships while he is on earth, to that God will his spirit float after death, and without resistance, becoming a dutiful slave, not knowing there be other gods in other heavens. So with this being said, you can see how Gabriel will be capturing the spirits after death to be subservient slaves to Gabriel, Allah. Now at the beginning of this vid, I already showed how Muhammad came in contact with Gabriel based off the historical records. And Muhammad had no knowledge of why he was chosen for this purpose. It was Gabriel that told Muhammad that he will be an apostle for Allah. And Muhammad accepted what Gabriel said. Now here's how Gabriel came to Muhammad to establish his scheme of Islam to take over on earth for world dominance. Verse 30 states, "And Gabriel made Atinav, chief lord of lords, to go down to the earth and find a mortal capable of the required inspiration. And he gave to Atinav to be his co-laborers, Yadimus, Stubborn, and Wolf, and with them at their call 300 million warrior angels." Verse 31, "And with this host Atinav departed for the earth, for Arabia. And as he went forth, he dropped off his host at certain distances, groups of angels, which formed the line of light from Gabriel down to the earth." So here you can see how Gabriel selected 300 million angels for this job. And from the throne of Gabriel to the earth, where Muhammad is located, these angels formed a line of light, which is the line of communication. No different from a telephone pole, where you can have a line of communication going from state to state. Likewise, with this line of communication among these angels. And likewise with the satellites, lines of communication. Now in chapter 50 in God's book of Esra, chapter 1, verse 1 and 2, Gabriel makes the connection with Muhammad. Verse 1, "The Lord said, Gabriel raised upon the earth one, Muhammad, who inspired him through his angel host. And the angel inspired Muhammad to go once every month into the cave of Hira, on which occasions Gabriel came in person and talked with Muhammad, who had Su'is in great perfection." So here Gabriel came to Muhammad in person. And this is proving earlier when I read how Gabriel appeared to him, where Muhammad bared witness to the angel. In the verse it states Muhammad had Su'is, which is the ability to hear and see angel, what they call clairaudience and clairvoyance today. Verse 2, 12 years in peace did Gabriel inspire mortals through Muhammad. But at the end of 13 years, Muhammad attained to sufficient strength to draw the sword for Gabriel's doctrine. And Gabriel, through inspiration, caused the Mohammedans to commemorate this as the beginning of his kingdoms on earth. And they therefore consecrated the said period of time. Verse 3, "And on this first meeting of the faithful and Gabriel, Muhammad, being under inspiration, spoke before the multitude, saying," verse 4, "There is but one God, and he is God. Heaven is his, the earth is the Lord's, through the angel Gabriel. This is the sum and substance of all things. This was the doctrine of Abraham and of Moses, our forefathers." Verse 5, "But evil men had invented other gods, which have no existence. They are idols, which exist only in superstition and ignorance." Verse 6, "Revere me not, nor call me wise. I am not wise. I have little learning. Knowledge cometh to me from the unseen. My eyes are open, my ears are open. I see and hear spiritual things. The angels of heaven tell me things of wisdom." Verse 7, "I do but repeat them. Therefore I am not wise, nor great. I strive to be honest and upright before God, but I am weaker than a child in these respects. Therefore worship not me, nor bow down before me. I am nothing." Verse 8, "As I am an instrument in the hands of God through his angel Gabriel, so also were Abraham and Moses and many of the prophets. They could work miracles. I cannot. Therefore I am the least of God's prophets." Verse 9, "That ye may become exalted before God, I am sent into the world. Shall I reveal what Gabriel hath told me? Or do you believe God is dead, or gone afar off? Believe ye that he cannot raise up a prophet in this day? Is God weak? Or hath he forgotten the world he created?" Verse 10, "Why hath this thing come at this time? No man can answer that. Gabriel saith, There is a false God in heaven, and he hath falsely called himself Christ. Gabriel saith that he himself, Gabriel, provided the way for the gathering of the lost sheep of Israel through an Aisu." See that? When the angel Gabriel came to Mary in the New Testament. But as I showed you, who created the New Testament? Luamong the false Christ through Gabriel and his inspiring angels. Verse 11. Brothers, I will tell you why I am chosen of God. It is to circumvent the Christians' adultery from coming into Arabia and the countries north and south and east. These countries were given by God to our forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and thence down to Moses, and thence down to us. Verse 13. There is but one God, and Gabriel is his angel for all the world. Now, as I showed earlier how Gabriel set up himself as a god, and with Muhammad saying this, unaware that Gabriel is the God he is really worshiping, thinking Gabriel is a servant to God, not knowing he is playing God and playing Muhammad as a fool. And like Muhammad said, he is being used as the instrument by the God. Verse 14. And God raised up a prophet from time to time to bless his chosen people. Verse 15. He put this matter upon me. I know only to serve God. Verse 16. The Christians are merciless warriors. This false Christ and his worshippers are working for the Romans and not for salvation. Wherever they go, they destroy the libraries and all manner of learning. Verse 17. Will ye submit like slaves to have them despoil you? Is there no Arabian blood in your veins? Verse 18. When asked to state the Mohammedan doctrine, he said to tell no lies, to not commit fornication, to preserve the ceremonies, to give to the poor freely, to observe the sacred days, to aggress not, but to war for the innocent and oppressed, to maintain the liberty of the people, to steal not, and to deceive no man. Verse 19. Muhammad, being under the inspiration of the God Gabriel and his angels, collected together thousands and tens of thousands of warriors, and went forth to conquer. And the angel host of Gabriel went forth with Muhammad's army, and inspired them to such degree that they were without fear or hesitation. And Gabriel's host of angels went into the armies that fought against Muhammad, and Gabriel's host of angels went into the armies that fought against Muhammad and inspired them with fear and cowardice and panic. You see the level of deception of these angels and the strategies they use and the power of inspiration over mortals? Verse 20. And it came to pass that wherever Muhammad went, there was sure victory, the like of which had not been for many centuries. So now, Gabriel is making his presence known on earth through Muhammad and his followers. Now you can see how angels can inspire mortals and how heavenly matters among angels can play out on earthly levels. Verse 21. Now, Luamong the false Christ had previously destroyed for the most part the Alexandrian library, having inspired a mortal priest, Cotilius, to do the work. Verse 22. And Luamong the false Christ, now perceiving the triumphant of Muhammad, inspired 300 monks and priests to go throughout Hellas and Arabia and destroy ancient state records and libraries. And they went hither and accomplished the destruction. So the purpose of Luamong the false Christ inspiring the destruction of the libraries is to avoid exposing his religious doctrine. Verse 23. Muhammad was shown this by Gabriel, and he used it as a battle cry for his soldiers. Verse 24. Luamong the false Christ now declared war in heaven amongst the false god Gabriel, and in not many years they both carried their war down to earth, contending for certain localities on earth. Now, this is the root of Mohammadism, later being Islam, inspired by the fallen angel Gabriel, better known as Allah. So when we look at the millions upon millions of Muslims, you can see how great the harvest will be for Allah, God Gabriel, when these mortals die, accepting this doctrine. And again, I cleared up. Allah is a title. You have titles and names. King David. King being the title, David being the name. Now, God Gabriel just gave you God, which is Allah. He gave you a title. Now we got the truth of the matter of the fact that Gabriel is the name of Allah in Islam. And this is what Muslims don't know, because this was the deception and scheme of Gabriel. Oahspe, decode this, so there's no more running around that you got the best doctrine. I'll open up these verses in Oahspe and show and prove that these long mysteries of how these religions got established, Oahspe is rendering it up, plain as day, as you could see me doing now. Now I'm going to end it out with this note. Oahspe verse 1, chapter 11 and 12. And the beast divided itself into 4 great heads, and possessed the earth about, and man fell down and worshipped them. Verse 12. And the names of the heads of the beast are Brahmin, Buddhist, Christian, and Mohammedan, being Islam. And they divided the earth and apportioned it between themselves, choosing soldiers and standing armies for the maintenance of their earthly aggrandizement. So again, Christianity and Islam are false religions. Christianity was a false religion established by Luamong, the false Christ, and Islam is a false religion established by the God Gabriel, better known as Allah. And with that, I'd like to say peace and blessings. Shalom.